This area in my garden has transformed so much over the past year. I am excited to take you a little bit back in time to when I first planted this native plant cottage garden and show you what progress I've been able to make in just a year and where I'm planning to go next. Let's go back in time now to before this space was a beautiful native plant garden so I can show you what it was before and the process of how I got to where we are today. Today, we're going to be working in my side yard next to my garage. I showed this space in my April garden tour as the work in progress or the not yet done space. I am hoping to create something like a secret garden, wildflower meadow type of experience so that as you walk through the gate from the front yard into the backyard, you sort of experience walking through all these beautiful tall plants, and then the secret is revealed of them. Okay, here is where the pathway ends. The goal is to continue it through this space and bring the pathway here all the way through the back gate and have flowers on either side. As you can see right now, it is mostly just weeds, more weeds, super tall grass, weeds, some Canada thistle back there, and what I think is a peony. We're going to try and save that. No, it's not native, but it's pretty, and we can just tuck it in back there, and hopefully it survives all the digging around. What we're going to do today. This was the previous homeowner's garden, so you can see there's some like lettuce volunteering itself here. I might dig that up and just plop it in the green stock just to save it so I don't trample over it. And then there's some tree seedlings in the fence, which I don't love. If I get the chance, I'm probably going to chop those down as well. And then this area is what we seeded for our first little meadow section. I don't know if you can tell, I've got some things starting to sprout here. Now, whether this is the seeds I planted or weed seeds is yet to be seen, but there is some stuff growing in here. So that is that section. I just laid down cardboard, grass clippings, mulch, and then put soil on top. Start this project, except that I know that thistle is invasive, so that's definitely gotta go. Some amount of weediness in this area is probably fine. The goal is really that as we put the native plants in, they'll out-compete all of the non-invasive species, but some things that are especially aggressive, you might have to take them out just to give a new plant a chance at success. Most things I'm gonna just let compost in place. I'm just gonna pull them and let them compost, but for especially aggressive and invasive weeds like this Canada thistle, I'm actually just gonna put it into a plastic bag and throw it away. I don't want it to have a chance at reseeding itself. Okay. I'm sure many folks will already know from the past gardening experience, or something someone has told them, you should probably not plant mint species directly into your garden because they will reseed themselves and become a weed. I'm not especially upset about this, but I might take out some of it as I come across it, just because it's not what I want to be in this section of the garden. This area already looks worlds better. I'm going to remove this little wooden border here, and then I think I'm going to start planting. It is kind of weird to conceptualize of weeding a wild space, if this is intended to be a wild space, but I do want to give the native plants that I purchased or got from swaps, my new plants that I have acquired, I want to give them a fighting chance. I don't want them to be immediately overtaken by invasive plants. So I'm just knocking back all of the non-native. I'm just pulling, chopping, and dropping. If I see anything that jumps out at me as being especially invasive, like Canada thistle, I'm bagging that, and I'm going to throw that away in the trash. But otherwise, I'm just going to leave it as organic material, let it break down over time. Probably I'll like chop it up with a shovel and just like rake it, and just let it naturally decompose. I do think I'm going to take out this wooden border here. It just isn't serving a purpose for me right now, and it's kind of a barrier to getting in here and managing. Plus, I really want to soften these border lines and really bring the plants all the way up to the pathway. So that is my next step here. It is a weird concept to think of like weeding a wild space, because even as I was pulling out some of the weeds, I was disturbing things like spider webs and nests for ground nesting insects, and I do want them to have a habitat here. That's the whole point of planting a native garden, a wildflower garden or a native prairie or what have you, whatever you want to call it. That's the whole point of me putting this space in. So it feels a little bit like a trade-off to pull things out, but it's all about resetting and giving these species an even better home once this garden space is complete. All right, so as a general rule, you don't actually need to fertilize or add compost or any type of amendments to the soil for native plants. I'm doing this for one of two reasons. One, I want to make sure my plantings look intentional so they don't accidentally get mowed down. And two, I'm hoping that this will suppress some amount of weeds until we get our chip drop mulch. And just provide some general health and nutrition for the soil. Here's the next couple plants up in my planting plan. Another milkweed, wild blue indigo. These are gonna go here. Let's do one of the blue indigo here, one here maybe, because there's already a hole, and then we could do one more milkweed here. That's it for today. We got some plants in the ground at the last minute. I had a stroke of inspiration and decided to grab this decorative border fence just as a temporary solution until the plants start to fill out and bush out and we get the mulch and it's more obvious where the garden is and where the walkway begins, just so that things don't get trampled. But I think it looks super cute. And I am legitimately so excited to see these plants grow and fill out. And I hope that this is the beginning of such a beautiful native wildflower garden. If you enjoyed this video, I will link another one of my videos below about how I'm trying to create more wildlife habitat in my backyard through planting native plants. And let me know in the comments below, have you ever planted a prairie or wildflower meadow or some other type of native garden in your yard? And what methods have you found for that to be successful? How do you keep the invasive weeds down? How do you keep your wild critters from eating your plants before they are big enough to survive that? Yeah, just let me know what you think. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more content from me, please subscribe, and you can follow along more of my journey. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Have you ever been scrolling on Instagram or Pinterest and came across a stunning cottage garden with beautiful wildflowers and thought, I want that in my yard? Well, stay tuned to hear my secrets to create a magical garden space full of native plants that will captivate you, feed pollinators, and support local wildlife. Right, so I'm back here today working on my side yard transformation. If you missed the first half, I will link that video. Last time, if you were with me, I planted this side with some native plants. Today I'm going to plant up this side and lay down the space for the pathway in between going up to where the fence is. And I'm going to start out just by mowing everything down.
Since moving into my house last year, I've been dreaming of transforming my backyard from a space that contains mostly grass lawn and invasive weeds to a beautiful oasis for wildlife and a place for me to enjoy with my friends and family. The vision for this space is to be a native plant cottage garden, something that's filled with densely planted, beautiful native plants of varying heights, some really tall, some a bit smaller, but that it obscures your view a little bit as you're coming from the front of the house to the back, so that when you're walking through the gate, you walk through all of these tall, beautiful plants, and then you enter into the backyard and the rest of the space is revealed. So that's why I call this my secret garden type of space.
Okay, Next up, I want to take out this wooden trim piece here. That was a ruminate from the previous homeowner's garden. I just don't need it anymore, and it's really hard to maintain this tall grass that's growing behind it that I can't do much about with this piece of wood here. So,
into my secrets for creating your own native plant cottage garden. Number 1, you're going to want to create at least a loose planting plan. Write down something. It doesn't need to be fancy. You don't have to have great drawing skills, but something that allows you to know which plants you want to put where you want your pathways to go, where you want the borders of your garden to be. And in my planting plan for this section, I wrote down the species of plants that I had already purchased along with their bloom time and color so that I could help arrange them in my garden based on what pops of color and times of bloom I wanted to see in different areas. You'll want to think about which plants will be tallest at their full height and organize them tallest to shortest, with the tallest plants on the borders of the garden or up against a wall if you have a wall that you're working with, and the plants getting shorter as they get towards the pathway or towards the other edge of the garden. So it creates sort of a cascading effect. You also want to think about which types of plants are going to be more bushy and fill in, which plants are going to be more viney and sort of spread across the ground, and then create zones or clusters for each plant type. And feel free to break sort of the planting in rows or planting in straight lines aspect of traditional gardens to create more of that homegrown cottagey aesthetic. So now we're preparing our site for planting. If you're planting into a grass lawn or a really weedy area, as I am, you're probably going to need to kill the existing vegetation before you plant your new plants. Here is my next secret to creating your native plant cottage garden. In terms of grass removal, there's many options to kill the grass. You can use a shovel to dig it out. You can use a sod cutter. The easiest way to go about removing the grass from that section of the garden is to just smother it with cardboard or thick plastic. And while this will take some time, you may have to wait a few weeks and on a hot summer part of the year so that you can kill the grass and weeds underneath it. That is the easiest way to move forward with planting a new garden section without having to cut out all the lawn. Make sure not to leave any of the roots of the weeds if you are planning on hand pulling them, because if you do, you'll be battling those same weeds for years and years to come. This part of the process is really tedious if you don't find satisfaction in weeding or removing grass lawns. As I do, I had a lot of fun breaking up the dirt in the soil and pulling out all of the weeds in this small section of my garden. This part of the project might be easier to hire out. And now on to the fun part. We are choosing what plants we're going to plant and finally getting some plants in the ground. Planting from seed can be the most inexpensive way to cover a large area, but you may not see all the varieties you planted appear in the first year. This method requires the most patience. Planting from plugs or small plants can be an affordable way to fill in a garden quickly and be able to have more control over which plants are growing where, as opposed to planting with seed, where you don't always have as much control about which plant will grow in which spot. I use this method. I was able to purchase a flat of 50 plugs for native prairie plants from my local soil and water conservation district. I was able to purchase it in an online native plant sale in the spring, and then the plants were delivered to me in the summer. This was a really good way for me to get a lot of plants in the ground and cover a pretty large section without having to spend a great fortune. Planting larger plants will absolutely create a more dramatic effect initially, and many of the plants may flower in the same season you put them in the ground. But buying gallon or quart-sized potted plants can be much more expensive than using either seeds, plugs, or smaller, less mature plants. One thing I've often heard about native plant gardening, and my final secret to share, is that you really have to be patient. It is often said that your garden in the first year will sleep, in the second year will creep, and in the third year, leap. So get started planting and be prepared to be wowed as the mini seasons go by and your garden continues to grow and grow.
I am so tired. That was, I think, 50 plants that I just put in the ground, and I'm feeling it. I am gonna sit down for a second, drink some water my new plants in the ground, and then show you what it looks like. I've heard before that when you're like embarking on these big projects, there's like the excitement in the beginning, and then there's that feeling of accomplishment at the end after you've done the thing, and then in the middle, it's like the messy middle. So right now we're definitely in like the messy middle section. So, and I know that the section of pollinator plants that I planted in my native garden section is gonna just be incredible, but when you plant things as small plants or bugs or what have you, it just takes time. They've got to establish their roots. They've got to grow big. You know, they're taking up all the energy, nutrients. They're taking the sun rays from the sun and they're, turning it into new growth, turning it into more plant growth. And that takes time. And so we're in the messy middle, but that's okay.
Normally, I will put down either cardboard saved from old boxes in the house, or I'll use landscape fabric to mark pathways in my garden and then add mulch on top later to help suppress the weeds.
In the spot where I started to put down the pathway, lots of weeds have already grown up. So I'm going to try and knock down what I can, put the landscape fabric down over top. I did want to say that for the most part, I am using cardboard as my weed suppressant with mulch and wood chips on top, because ultimately I want to add to the soil. I don't want to detract from the soil. I don't want to kill the soil life. All of this project is about building up the soil life and the health of my backyard for the benefit of me as a gardener and also all the things that live in the environment. But because this section seems to be especially weedy, and because this is intended to only be a pathway, it's a section right near the gate at the front of my yard, and it's pretty much only ever going to be walked over. It won't be grown in. I'm going to put the landscape fabric down, and I'm not as concerned about it in that spot. So the goal is to, where you see the black fabric now, mow things down, connect up to where this pathway ends, leading back into the vegetable garden, and we'll see how far we get today. Maybe we'll do this section as well. Really, I'm just trying to create a smooth pathway. All right, let's get into it. If you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy my creating a beautiful native pollinator garden from a weedy mess video, where I transform this space behind me. The transformation from what it was before to how beautiful it looks now is truly incredible. Go check it out. Let me know in the comments if you have ever tried planting a pollinator garden or a cottage garden or something like that in your space. And do you have any questions about native plants or pollinator gardening that I could help answer for you in a future video? If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so that you can follow along on my journey. If you like the video, please like it. When you like or comment or watch more of my videos, it really helps my channel to grow, and I really appreciate you for doing that. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. It is officially my favorite time of the year, which is fall. I just love seeing the season change, feeling that cool, crisp air, seeing the colors of the leaves, seeing the way all of nature bursts forth into color to celebrate end of season and then slowly fades away and enjoys the big sleep of winter. It is my favorite time in the garden, and so I wanted to show you what my garden looks like now at the end of the season. The last garden tour we did, I believe, was in April, which was, I think, before I even had any plants in my bed. I will have to go back and find that footage, and maybe I can share some of the before and afters in this video. But just the transformation is beautiful. It's amazing. It's not perfect. I mean, one of the things that I'm learning along this gardening journey, especially being able to document on YouTube, is that you have to celebrate the journey. Sometimes you get to the end of the video and it's not a perfect finish or a perfect before and after transformation. It's not the most dramatic thing ever. Sometimes you have to just learn to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. And that's kind of where I'm at today. I think the garden is beautiful. I am so excited to share it with you. So let's get into it. Welcome to my fall garden. Here in my native plant pollinator garden, which is very much still a work in progress, I have some mint from the previous homeowner's garden. I don't know what type of mint this is, but I did not plant it, and it is very difficult to get rid of it. So for now I'm living with it. It is pretty, it does smell great, so that's a benefit. Some beautiful jack little pumpkins. This is another thing that just kind of sprung forth from the garden. I didn't necessarily plant it. I don't really know how they got here, but I mean, can't be upset about pumpkins. Like, these are gorgeous. We're obviously still getting some damage from the groundhogs, although since we have gotten the dog, it does seem like the groundhogs are in the garden less, slightly less, whenever he's not here. So the pumpkins just sort of sprung forth on their own. But the things I planted were this milkweed here. This is swamp milkweed. This beautiful plant here, which is a wild senna. I see it's starting to get some seed pods, which is really exciting. Maybe we'll be able to harvest some seeds and propagate this plant. Another little pumpkin baby down here. I'm not doing any harvesting today. I'm hoping maybe this weekend I can get out and grab some flowers and some veggies to bring inside, and I will bring you along on that journey as well. Here's some of the new section. It is very weedy, but you can see that these are starting to come in. Even though they're not flowering yet, they are looking really good. And in this section, you can see sort of, here's the perennials that I planted, and here's just a bunch of weeds, a lot of which actually look like tomato plants. This was a vegetable garden before I moved in, so there are a lot of still seeds of things in the seed bank that I didn't plant. So this section, it looks like, mostly has been damaged. This is a rudbeckia that obviously has been, it's a rudbeckia, it's been eaten down by animals. I don't know whether that's the groundhogs or whether it's deer. Also a lot of black-eyed Susans. Yeah, I planted black-eyed Susans in this section, also echinacea. Some of this is just having a harder time getting established because of the pest pressure, but I'm hoping that next year they'll be doing a lot better. This pretty guy, which is, I believe, a butterfly weed. Let's see if we can find a tag. Intermingled with all kinds of weeds I didn't plant, of course. Okay, I don't see a tag, but I believe this is butterfly weed. So this was the section that we actually seeded with native wildflower seeds. So I'm not entirely sure what this variety is. It's really pretty. I'm excited to harvest some of these flowers to bring in as cut flowers. You can hear the cardinals singing to us right now. It's really beautiful. So I'd love to show you what my garden is looking like. And this early part of the season, what things I've gotten planted, what things I am still struggling to get into the ground, and what projects and exciting things I'm looking forward to this year. Okay, huh? So this section is what I'm calling my native cottage garden. I've got a path at the entranceway to my backyard garden that I've created with wood chips, and I've got plantings, wide garden bed, border plantings on either side of the pathway. So on this side, I've got some milkweed, some wild blue indigo, I always forget what this one is called, blue mountain mint or something. I'll have to look at an old video and pull it up. And echinacea in the back. And then I honestly don't remember what's planted on this side of the garden. I think it's Coreopsis, black-eyed Susan, some different asters, and I believe goldenrod. So on this side of the garden, like both sides of the garden are planted essentially in wildflowers. And this is a project I started last year, and I haven't fully finished it. It was like an old vegetable garden that had been overtaken by weeds. By the time that I moved into the house, it was completely overgrown, and just didn't feel like a usable space to me. So, and also it only gets really like a good morning sun. It's not a good full sun spot. So I knew I wasn't going to keep a veggie garden here. But in moving the veggie garden, which I now have in the back of my house there, I decided that the side yard would be a beautiful place for flower garden, pollinator garden, wildlife garden, which I'm trying to sprinkle all throughout the yard, but this was project number one. So it's really cool to see that some of the things that I put in the ground last year have now started to really take off. The plants are sizing up. It looks like that we may get some blooms this year. I see the first little yellow flower starting to peek through. Yeah, and I think that this is just going to be a major work in progress. I can see that there's still some grass trying to creep in to the yard here, and there's still some like invasive things I'm going to have to fight against, the thistles and that sort of thing. But overall, I'm really, really proud of the progress on this garden. And there is a whole section still unplanted over by where the camera is, that I'm hoping to add some flowers to this year. There is a maple tree here. I'm not sure if it's even like an intentionally planted maple tree or if it's just a volunteer because it's growing like through the fence. So not ideal, but it's already of a size that I don't think I could take it out. So I'm going to work with it. We might try and find some more shade-loving native plant babes to exist under this little spot. Oscar, get out of my garden. But yeah, this is a work in progress, but I'm really proud of the progress that we've had so far with it. One of the things that I originally set out to do when I started to work on this part of the garden was that I wanted to transform this space into a pollinator habitat, into a wildlife garden. So the main purpose for me was in getting in as many native plants as possible into the space, really filling up the space, making it beautiful, full of flowers, full of life, and just exciting to look at, like an immersive experience. So I planted pretty densely. I ordered a bunch of plug plants. I started a bunch of things from seed. And you can see next to me, I do have the Rebecca Black-Eyed Susan. and the blue mist flower, which isn't really flowering yet, but I might be able to get you a close-up of one of these flowers. Right down in front of me, I have a Liatris blazing star. I just transplanted another one right here, so it's a little laying down, but I think it'll be fine. And then over in this section, I've got, I think that's little blue stem grass, a couple of milkweeds. I've got a swamp milkweed or rose milkweed, and also a common milkweed. Behind it, really beautiful in bloom right now, I've got 2 Baptisia wild blue indigo. No, that's not that. I have 2 wild sennas, and there was a Baptisia planted somewhere. I'll have to find it. Okay, over on this side, I've got some full sunflower or something that animals have eaten tops off of, so we may not get a flower this year, but next year I'm more hopeful. The beautiful orange is a butterfly milkweed. Got some more black-eyed Susans, Rebecca, also some coneflower, purple coneflower, echinacea. And then I'll see if I can find a photo of most of the coreopsis. There's a little bit yellow spilling out into the pathway here. There's a little bit of yellow spilling out into the pathway here. I'll see if I can find a photo of when it was in a full bloom. That's coreopsis. And behind it, there's some foxglove, beard's tongue, beautiful white, tall flowers. But it makes such an impact in the garden, and I'm really so impressed by this space. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one. If you are interested in creating your own native plant garden, I have a bunch more videos on the channel. I'll link below, starting with how I find and source my seeds and plants for my native gardens. I'll link that video in the end cards there for you to watch until my next upload. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.